Hey everyone, it's the Doom Dog. So we are finally getting a new Halo game. After years of waiting and a lengthy delay, Halo Infinite is set to launch not too long after this video goes up. With that in mind, I think it's time to play some more catch up in my ongoing retrospective on the series. It's about time we took a look at the next mainline entry in the Halo franchise. This is Halo 5 Guardians, the first title in the series for Microsoft's 8th gen console, the Xbox One. Halo 5 has proven to be the most divisive entry in the series, with it receiving a lot of fan backlash at launch. It seems to be the most analyzed game in the series as well. The Act Man did a multi-part review on it, Racevic, Dishonored Wolf, and Halo Follower all did videos analyzing this one, and Angry Joe dedicated 2 videos to it when he reviewed it. Suffice to say, this game has been a controversial one to fans, to say the least. Why is this, and is it any good? Let's take a look. Before we get into the story proper, we need to discuss the marketing for this game. Say what you will about 343 as a company, they know how to get a hype machine going for a game. This game was initially revealed with this trailer that features a cloaked figure walking through a desert. It turned out to be the Master Chief, and he is holding Cortana's chip in one hand. A gigantic robot rises up from the sands, and its wings spread out. It sends off a blast or gust of wind that reveals the Chief. I do have a couple of questions about this. Why is the Chief wearing clothes over his armor? Which are clothes? It's rather strange. Is it just to hide his identity? Is that the point of it? If so, why is it so loosely wrapped around him that a fairly strong gust of wind is all it takes to ruin the disguise? This has always been strange to me ever since I first saw this years ago. Anyway, after that we got trailers featuring a new Spartan named Locke. They set up Locke as this hunter who is tasked with hunting down the Master Chief. The city around him lies in ruins, and the trailer indicates that Chief is somehow at fault for it. It makes you question if Chief has gone rogue or something, and it makes you wonder if he is going to be the bad guy now. That would be interesting. It might be hard to justify, though. There was another trailer where Chief seems to be hunting down Locke in the same fashion. I have no doubt that these counter-narratives were set up to make sure that you have no idea which Spartan was the real good guy in this game. These 2 trailers accomplished their goal well. They set up a potentially interesting story. Maybe there is something wrong with the Chief and he has gone off the rails? Perhaps Locke is trapped in a lie about Chief and he pitted himself against him as a result. Who knows? By far, the biggest piece of marketing genius that the team put out there, however, is the Hunt the Truth podcast. This was a 2-season-long series of podcasts. The first season follows a journalist named Benjamin Giroux as he tries to dig into the history of the Master Chief, the Spartan program, as well as uncovering the truth of a political assassination that Chief was blamed for. It dives into Oni as an organization, and it has numerous twists and turns. It very much falls along with what the marketing has set up. Is Chief a hero or a villain? The second season follows Maya Sankar, aka Pharaoh, as she picks up where Ben left off and continues to try to expose Oni and penetrate their web of lies. Like the first one, it has numerous twists and turns throughout. Altogether, the 2 seasons are about 6 hours long, and I would recommend listening to them as they are very, very good. They are extremely entertaining listens and are very well produced and extremely high quality. It's compelling stuff. Just don't do it the way I did and crash course the entire thing over the span of 2 days. It's way too much to take in over such a short period of time. So the marketing sets up a big rivalry between the two Spartans, Locke and Chief, with different ideas. It presents this idea that something may have gone wrong with Chief, and it shows that Oni is not to be trusted in the slightest. The foundation for a great story was laid down here. Did Halo 5 hit the nail on the head? Did it deliver a compelling narrative that someone obviously put a ton of work into setting up? Well, let's talk about it. The game starts off with Dr. Halsey in an Oni facility. She pulls an object out of a machine. She is talking to Spartan Locke. She brings up a hologram of Cortana. She says that after everything is said and done, Oni will kill both of them. The scene has literally nothing to do with the rest of the game. You could remove it entirely and it would affect nothing. Halo 4 did something similar, but at least that gave us good background information on the Spartan program. This gives us literally nothing. Why is this here? After that wonderful start, we are introduced to a new group of Spartans called Fire Team Osiris. Lasky is briefing them on a mission. Over the last 72 hours, 5 different colonies have been destroyed by Forerunner attacks. Hey, game, this is a massive bombshell to drop in a single line of dialogue. You want to, I don't know, show that? After all, show don't tell is one of the rules of storytelling. No? Okay. Halsey got into contact with Lasky and she said she has info on the attacks. There is only one problem. She is currently in the custody of the Covenant, and they are on a planet called Kamchatka. Osiris needs to rescue her. She is with the Covenant leader, Jewel Mdama, and Lasky wants you to try to take him out when you rescue Halsey. Now, you're probably wondering 2 things about this piece of information. The first is, how did Halsey get into the custody of the Covenant? Well, this game doesn't actually tell you. Get used to that, because it does not tell you a lot of things. Your answer to this question is in the Spartan Ops mode in Halo 4. The only way you would know the answer to this is if you played that mode. The first mission of this game is a wrap-up to the story in that mode. If you did not play it, it leaves you completely in the dark. The second question is, who the hell is Jewel Marmalade? I know when I first played this, I had no fucking clue who he was or what his importance is. Well, I'm going to show you, since this game won't. Watch this terminal from Halo 4 and it will tell you who he is.
No, Intiyoko. Nikokorekete Forerunner 90 Buhuni. Rigachita Womeo is on. Requiem Kano Rio no Meo. Ndamu Jones. Gei Takieshu, Tashimaridomo, Wariaka, Toshibo, Ngeno Nonefu, Wariaka Tashimakitemo. Domo Inganon, Womasa on. Ei, Koyakumo, Tashimagachi. Watanishi Rue, Noko Doma Inganon se Requiem.
Yeah, see that? It answers who he is and why the Covenant was even in Halo 4 to begin with. If you missed this when you were playing Halo 4 back in the day, you were probably left completely clueless. Back to the story. The only member of Fireteam Osiris that most Halo fans will probably recognize is Buck. Remember Buck from Halo 3 ODST? Well, he's a Spartan now. When did this happen? How did this happen and why? Yeah, this is another thing that the game is just not going to tell you. He's just a Spartan now. Like I told you, you had better buckle up and get used to this game not explaining things. The mission starts with the Spartans in a fast-paced action sequence where they are slaughtering the Covenant without second thought. This is here because rule of cool, I guess, but I don't really like it. It kind of undermines your enemies as a threat. It makes it look like a small handful of Spartans could have single-handedly won the entire war because they just slaughter them all with ease. It kind of makes the Covenant look pathetic. After they finally come to a stop and take a few more enemies out, the game begins proper. The other two members of Team Osiris are female Spartans named Tanaka and Vale. The game does not bother to flesh out their characters, so I won't spend much time on them. If the game cannot take the time to care about its own characters, why should I? At one point it is brought up that Halsey lost her left arm and Locke claims that Jewel did it. This is only kind of true. Jewel Medallion did amputate the arm, but he is not why it needed to be amputated in the first place. Palmer, the Spartan commander from Halo 4, shot her in the arm. The only way you would know this is if you played Spartan Ops or watched the cutscenes for it. Considering 343 wrote both, you would think that they would get this detail right and give us a little more than Jewel Mayonnaise did it. Anyway, Halsey is trying to track down someone for Jewel Madamada, and he is losing his patience with her. Osiris interrupts the argument between the two. They attack the Covenant leader and take him out in a quick fight that really makes him look like a pushover. 343 spent all of Spartan Ops building up Jewel Malfeasance as a villain, and they just casually toss him to the side like he is nothing. It's like they don't care about their own story or their own villain. If you played Spartan Ops, you might be wondering what happened with the key to the Forerunner tech that the librarian gave to Halsey in that mode. She gave one to the Spartan team before the Covenant took her away, so they only have the other half. They were going to have her look for it. Well, don't bother asking. This game will not tell you. It never even mentions it. What is the fucking point? Even though this entire mission exists to wrap up Spartan Ops, there is still a disconnect between its story and what is presented here. Ugh. Anyway, Osiris takes Halsey back to the Infinity. Palmer and Lasky meet you in the hangar bay. Halsey mentions that she contacted Lasky 3 weeks ago, and she wants to know what took so long. Yeah, I want to know that too. Instead of answering that question, Lasky says they will talk about it in private. That's it. That's all the game gives you. The game switches over to Chief and a team of Spartans named Blue Team. And there's a very good chance that you, the player, don't know who Blue Team is. Good news! The game does not tell you, and it does not give them much personality either. They are worried about Chief and his mental and emotional state because they have been taking on an unusually high number of missions with no stop lately. It sets up this idea that there might be something wrong with the Chief and never pays it off. Because of course it doesn't. Anyway, they are headed to a deep space research station called Argent Moon. It disappeared 19 months ago. Someone finally found it, and there are Covenant on board. Your team is tasked with taking the station back from them. You see elites on the station. One of them says to throw some people out of the airlock. Hey, I bet this guy would get along great with Javik.
You're wrong. Throw it out the airlock.
Blue Team decides that instead of docking in some hangar bay or something, they will jump out of their ship toward the station, shoot through a window, and come crashing through it into the station proper. You are probably wondering two things. First, why does a deep space research station have windows? Second, given that it does have windows, shouldn't they at least be bulletproof? The answer to your questions are, I do not know, and I guess not. The Covenant gets sucked out of the window into deep space. Don't you just love how this game makes them look like a fucking joke? No one knows why this research station disappeared, but you do find out that they were researching a new type of stealth vessel as you see it docked below. As the team is crossing the bridge, a hunter bursts through the wall and jumps onto the bridge that Chief is on. It collapses and he falls down below. He tries to contact his team and he gets no response. He sees a vision of Cortana's chip. It disappears when he tries to pick it up. He hears her voice. She says that the domain is open, whatever that means, and the reclamation has begun. This is not explained either. Chief wakes up surrounded by his team in a completely different location. I do not know where we are or how we got here, and the game is not going to tell us. He tells Blue Team that Cortana is alive and that she is on Meridian. The only question he gets is wondering how that is possible. Really? After setting up that you were worried about his mental and emotional state of well-being? At the beginning of this mission, that is all you're going to wonder about after he mentions that Cortana is alive? You have literally nothing else that you want to question about this. When I first saw this scene, I thought they were going for a PTSD angle. Perhaps Chief has post-traumatic stress after losing everyone that he once considered a friend? This could tie into the marketing even. Maybe Locke is hunting Chief down because this makes Chief unstable. And they want to bring him in before he does something he will ultimately regret. This could be a very interesting storyline, but no, that would require good writing, and this is Halo 5. We will have none of that in this game. Later on, a bunch of Covenant arrive, and they prove to be an overwhelming force. There are far too many for Blue Team to fight, and their plan changes from recovering the station to stopping the Covenant from taking control of it. They are now going to have to blow it up. You receive word that Jewel Amidala is dead, and that should put some confusion in the Covenant ranks. After setting up the reactor to blow up, Blue Team boards a ship in the hangar bay and escapes. What happened to the Pelican that they flew in on? I guess it's just floating there now? The Chief tells Infinity about Cortana. Infinity already knows somehow. If they know, that means that it is not just some vision Chief had. She really is alive. You gave her a great and emotional ending to her story in the last game. You had better have a good reason to bring her back, because this is fucking stupid. Anyway, Infinity tells Chief and Blue Team to come back. He refuses, and the rest of his team board the ship. They fly off to fight Cortana. Did you catch that? That is the reason Locke is sent after Chief. He refuses an order to return to Infinity and chases after Cortana instead. He is declared AWOL, and they send Locke after him to bring him in. Surely this is what all that marketing was building up to, right? What? You were expecting something more substantial than him refusing an order just like he did in the last game? Nope, this is all you get because fuck you. Halsey says that Cortana has access to the domain, and we do not get an explanation on what the hell that even means. Halsey believes Cortana is responsible for whatever Forerunner attacks have been destroying colonies. We still do not get to see these attacks. I swear to God, this game operates on the storytelling rule of don't show, don't tell either. Halsey says further that Chief is not emotionally capable of handling Cortana right now. Remember this little detail. We will come back to it later on. Locke and Fireteam Osiris are being sent after Chief, and they are going to use armor restraints to try to bring him back in without a fight. Buck says that when the other soldiers hear about this, they are going to hate us. We are shown no evidence of this. Locke says Chief is the reason he is here too, and we get no explanation on this line either. Jesus Christ, game. Give your story beats some damn payoff at some point. Chekhov's fucking gun. Anyway, you take the space elevator down to Meridian. We heard about these things back on Reach and saw the destroyed remains of one. It is nice to see one that is actually functioning, at least. Furthermore, Meridian is a planet that has been glassed in the past, so it is cool to see the effects that has on a planet. It is not under UNSC jurisdiction. A private company is working to chip away the glass and make it livable again. You get contacted by the governor of the colony. His name is Sloan, and he does not seem too pleased that you are here. Meridian is under attack by Prometheans, and you need to help the people of the colony. We are never told why the Prometheans are attacking the colonists. The game does mention that they generally only attack Forerunner planets, though. Meridian was never found to be a Forerunner planet, which begs the question of why they're here in the first place. This planet gives you one of the few pieces of something resembling character development when Tanaka mentions that her planet was glassed. Forerunner troops have learned to drive human vehicles. The game does not mention when this happened or how. The people of Meridian have a Scorpion tank. The game draws attentions to this as well, and it talked about being rather odd for a civilian colony outside the UNSC space. As usual, however, it goes no further than that because good writing or something. Osiris enters the main hub of operation called Meridian Station in one of the two hub areas, and this entire very short level could have been done in a cutscene. I have no idea why this was done this way, but you talk to Sloan and find out that he's an AI with rampancy. He mentions that another team of Spartans showed up before, so Chief was here. The people here are not happy to see Spartans, but based only on what they say to you, you gather that a UNSC ship was here and it headed to Apogee. Sloan is not happy about you poking around, and he wants to know why a UNSC ship went out there. Locke tells him that he intends to ask, so Sloan gives you a ship. Board the Pelican and your team flies out to Apogee. Sloan sent some of his men to keep an eye on you. While you are exploring, you find Blue Team's ship. It turns out that they made their way into the mines. You get Sloan to open the door, and your team heads in. There are no signs of the Prometheans engaging with Blue Team, which is strange. Deep in the mines, you come across a Forerunner artifact. That explains why the Prometheans were here, but it does not explain what their conflict with the locals is. Nonetheless, Sloan never reported this find, and it is, once again, odd. Also, you were never given a reason why he never reported it. As you make your way further down, you eventually lose contact with Sloan. You come across what seems to be stasis pods lining the wall, and you hear a voice saying she calls to the Guardians to serve her. A massive Forerunner robot jumps down. He calls himself the Warden Eternal. He serves Cortana. He orders you to leave, so kick his ass. After doing so, you find that Cortana is not here. There is a massive robot in front of you. This is the Guardian. The room is full of teleporters, and Blue Team teleports in. Locke and Chief get into a fist fight, and I just want you to watch this whole thing. Yeah, you see that? This is the big confrontation that the marketing was building up to. That lame-ass fistfight. This is 2 super soldiers in power armor in a face-punching contest. So why is it so boring? This should have at least been like Captain America versus Iron Man in Civil War, or the fight and They Live, but no. Seriously, 343, how on earth do you make 2 Spartans punching each other fucking boring? Fuck off! Anyway, as you saw, Chief won using Locke's own armor restraint on him, and Blue Team escapes. The Guardian begins to wake up. Fireteam Osiris needs to escape. The escape sequence is pretty cool. Not going to lie. It makes good use of the teleporting platforms as your team gets away. I like this. The Guardian is wreaking havoc on the colony and you need to escape. It is being evacuated. Osiris believes that Chief and Blue Team are on board the Guardian, and it turns out that Cortana warned Sloan ahead of time, and Sloan says that big change is coming for AI and human alike, and he wants to be part of it. Take the elevator up to the waiting Pelican. The game gives you a tiny bit of backstory here on Blue Team, as it turns out that they grew up together as members of Spartan 2 program, and they see each other as family. That is why the other 3 are willing to disobey orders to follow Chief. Yeah, I can see just how important they are. They are so important, in fact, that they were not mentioned at all in any of the previous 4 games with Chief as the main character. Not all of the colonists make it to the evac ship on time, and Sloan winds up leaving a few people behind. The Guardian lets out some kind of energy blast, and the elevator stalls out. Osiris finds an exit and climbs the rest of the way to the Pelican. The Guardian attacks them as they are headed to the Pelican, and the landing pad collapses. The Pelican starts falling as the team falls into it, and they take off as the Guardian escapes into slip space. Back on the Infinity, you are informed that there is a Guardian on St. Helios. The Arbiter is there fighting a war against the dual Marsupial-led Covenant forces. Why is the Arbiter fighting the Covenant? Who knows? It is another thing that the game does not find important enough to actually explain, but the UNSC has largely stayed out of the conflict. This means that it is officially an off-the-record mission. If you get the coordinates from the Guardian and trace it to where it is going, you should be able to find out where Chief is. Osiris needs to go down to St. Helios, off the record, to meet with the Arbiter. There, you can plan a course of action that will lead you to the Guardian. The game switches back to Blue Team on a new planet. Guardians are arriving all around them, and you do not know why. When you approach a panel of some sort, it gives off a signal that Blue Team recognizes. Of course, this audio signal does not mean anything to the player because it has never appeared in any of the previous games. The game also does not explain what it might mean to Blue Team or what it might have been used for. Anyway, the Covenant are here as well, and no one seems to know why. They have not been here long. You eventually come across a shielded entrance to a Forerunner facility, and the shield will not lower until Blue Team kills off the Covenant forces. Chief suggests that the Didact ship escaped into slip space at the end of the last game, and that might be how Cortana wound up here. So, are we rewriting the end of Halo 4 after we rewrote Spartan Ops earlier? Really, game? Did the devs even fucking play Halo 4? The Didact ship did not escape into slip space. Chief planted a nuke on it and destroyed it. Cortana used the last of her energy to help Chief escape the blast, and she died. Literally none of this makes sense, and none of it should be possible. Anyway, Cortana appears to be leading Blue Team to various consoles, and more Guardians arrive all the time. You eventually come across a large group of Covenant that have been slaughtered The Warden Eternal shows up despite the fact that Locke and Osiris kicked his ass.
Can't you even die right?
Chief demands to be taken to Cortana. The Warden refuses and says to follow him. He asks why Chief is here, and Chief says he is going to bring Cortana home. The Warden says Chief does not understand. Later on, the Warden is convinced that Chief will betray Cortana, and he says that the mantle of responsibility belongs to Cortana and the AIs, and humanity will not have it. He attacks Blue Team, so kick his ass a second time. Afterwards, Cortana contacts you. Seriously, how the hell is she alive? She sacrificed herself to save Chief, and the ship was blown up. She should be dead as shit. I cannot believe that this is the plot we're going with. This world is called Genesis, and it is a Forerunner world. Warden has a bunch of different bodies that he can use, and that is how he did not stay dead. Cortana was pulled into the domain. The only explanation we are given for the domain is that it is a galaxy-spanning Forerunner network. It cured Cortana of her rampancy. The Forerunner structure ahead is called the Gateway, and the consoles she has led you to are pressed in sequence in order to open the gateway. She leads you to one last console. The cure for rampancy makes AIs immortal, and that allows them to make extremely long-term plans. That means further that AIs can assume the mantle of responsibility. Warden believes Chief will object to this as the mantle is an Imperial piece. Step out of line and you are done for. Blue Team arrives at the big facility and the game switches back to Infinity. Osiris is preparing to go down to St. Helios. Halsey and Palmer are coming too, so Halsey can study the Guardian up close. Locke wrote a dossier 6 years prior on the Arbiter, and he recommended assassinating him. There is some bad blood there as a result. Elites approach you and say that the Arbiter is engaged in battle and they will escort you down to the planet. They take you down in a Phantom. You land far away from the battle and are greeted over the radio by a female warrior. The Arbiter gathered the different elite groups into one fighting force called the Swords of St. Helios. And the Covenant are on the run after the death of Jewel Macadamia. The Arbiter is in the Council Chamber. When you arrive at the Council Chamber, you find that it is crawling with Covenant forces. Fight your way through them, and you find the Arbiter is fighting off more of them at the top of the chamber. A Phantom arrives and picks you all up. Locke introduces himself to the Arbiter, and he gives him thanks from Lasty for cooperation. The Arbiter knows who Locke is, and he knows that Locke tried to have him killed. Locke quickly tries to defuse the situation by pointing out that he did just save his life. Cortana interrupts this and says that you will never find Chief, and she knows that the Guardian is here. Locke tells Halsey that Osiris will strike within the hour, and she needs to have her plans ready to go by then. Here is another small hub section that would be better suited as a cutscene. Go to Halsey, and she says she discovered something called the Constructor. They are Forerunner robots that interface with the Guardian, and she may be able to find out where the Guardians are headed with one. Report to Palmer and tell her that you are ready to go. You have to land at a distance as there is a Kraken in between you and the Constructor. What is a Kraken? Basically, it's just a new form of the Scarab from Halo 2, 3, and Wars. You eventually reach where the Kraken finally parked itself, and you need to take it out. Get a Phaeton, a Forerunner combat ship, and land on it, and make your way down inside the Kraken. Once inside, find the generator for the Kraken and destroy it. Grab yourself a Banshee or your Phaeton, and make your way back out of it before the Kraken explodes. Fly into the Forerunner facility to retrieve the Constructor. Prometheans attack to try to stop you from escaping with it, so fight your way back out. The Arbiter sends the Phantom to pick you up, and it takes you back to camp. Here we get the third and final hub level that should have been a cutscene. It is in the exact same location as the previous one. Report to Halsey. She says the constructor seems to be working as planned. Go talk to Bomber. She is going to take Halsey off-world while you attack the city of Sanion. Report to Halsey. The constructor starts moving toward the Guardians, so it is time to attack. The Arbiter rallies troops to take back the city. Halsey says to stop Cortana, but to bring Chief back to her. Buck asks Tanaka to say a few words. She gives a little speech, and it is really bad and cringe. She says Buck is buying rounds after this, and he agrees. Osiris drops into battle to take back the city from the Covenant. The plan is to board the Guardian before it jumps into slip space. This will allow the team to wind up wherever the Guardian winds up going. The theory is that this will lead them to the Chief. As you approach the Guardian, the Prometheans appear. The Guardian rises up from the ocean. Make your way to it as quickly as you can. The Warden shows up a third time to try to stop you from reaching it. Take him out yet again. The Guardian is ready to leave. Palmer picks you up in a pelican and flies you up over it. Osiris jumps off onto the Guardian and Palmer flies away. The Guardian goes into slip space and it appears out over the planet Genesis. You activate mag boots to keep yourself from falling off. I guess that is just something Spartans have now. Anyway, climb your way down until it is safe to jump to the planet below. I'm not sure why jumping from this height would kill them. She fell from a similar height to this and survived at the start of Halo 3. And 6 dropped from a Covenant ship orbiting Reach down to the planet below, and he survived that too. I still don't know how, though. A blast from the Guardian knocks Osiris off of it, and they fall down to the planet below. Locke tries to hail Chief, and Chief responds. He says that he is in the gateway. Cortana recognizes you, and she seems displeased that Locke is here. Later on, you run across a monitor for this installation named 031 Exuberant Witness. She says that Cortana is after the mantle, and she gives you a Scorpion tank to deal with the Prometheans and the Covenant. Guardians keep arriving here the entire time. One Guardian can police an entire galaxy. The Forerunners used them to enforce peace, and she does not know why Cortana is gathering so many here. The Gateway is a bridge between the Domain and Genesis. I still do not know what the Domain is because the game won't give you any more information on it. The Domain and the Gateway will allow Cortana to be reborn in the physical world. Whatever the hell that means. The Warden shows up again, and you have to kick his ass again. Are you sick of this guy yet? The monitor says that the Warden is not a robot. And it does not elaborate. So what the hell is he then? Fucking explain, game. Holy shit. Fucking explain! Osiris enters the Gateway where they meet up with Chief and Blue Team. Cortana says that you are too late and she teleports Blue Team away. The Warden approaches Chief. Cortana tells him to leave. He ignores her. She forces him out. She says that the Guardians will keep troublesome worlds in line, and she will do the same. She will force people to bend to her will. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Guardians are giant robots that destroy entire worlds. They're fucking Reapers, and she is going to use them to use fear to keep the galaxy in line. Cortana wants to rule everything with an iron fucking fist, and she is the fucking villain. They brought Cortana back from the dead to make her the fucking villain. Damn it, 343. What the fuck? In the last game, you gave Cortana a hero's death. It was emotionally impactful and you fucking earned it. She died a hero, and you decided to fucking wipe that away in this game so you can make her the fucking bad guy? What the fuck? She's not acting like the Cortana you knew over the past 4 games. She acts completely differently. You fucking ruined the amazing ending of the last game. Fuck you for that. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you. All right. I'm calm. I'm calm. Chief shrugs off Cortana being nice to him and demands to know how many people died when she woke up the Guardians. She seems confused by this. Your team is convinced that Cortana is letting the Warden attack you. Chief thinks Cortana will listen to him, but the rest of the team notes that this tactic has not worked so far. The Warden shows up again to try to stop you from reaching Cortana, and you have to kick his ass yet again. You finally reach Cortana, and the Warden shows up to stop you again. As Blue Team is about to be overwhelmed, Cortana intervenes to stop the Warden. She pleads her case, and Chief tries to tell her to stop and stand down. Cortana freezes Blue Team in place and puts them in a cryptum. This was that vault the Didact was trapped in Halo 4. She will leave you here while she finishes her work. Remember back toward the beginning of this game when Halsey said John was not equipped to handle this meeting? It turns out that she was right about that. This did not go well. The monitor tells Osiris that Cortana activated a cryptum, and she shows you a hologram of one. It is an extended forced meditation pod. It basically puts people into stasis for long periods of time. Cortana is planning on using one to take Chief with her, and Locke needs to make sure that that does not happen. There are a ton of Guardians gathered around Genesis, and one of them departs into slip space. The monitor says the reclamation has begun, and we did not get an explanation on that because why the fuck would we? Who needs an explanation anyway? Cortana is pissed that you are here, and she is convinced humanity never gave a shit about her. Given the actions of Chief and others over the course of the past 4 games, this makes no fucking sense. But that is par for the course with this game's story. Anyway, her going into the domain cured her rampancy, so she can offer this cure for it to any other AI. And she has been contacting lots of AIs all over the galaxy, and many of them stand in service to her as a result, including Governor Sloan. You find the Prometheans and the Covenant fighting each other here on Genesis. You come across the cryptum. You need to take out a bunch of cores in order to free the thing in hopes of getting Chief back. After destroying the last of them, the monitor found a way to reach the cryptum, but she needs Locke's help. Activate the override, and it lowers the cryptum. The building below it opens up. Enter it. Cortana is preparing to leave. She is taking the Chief with her. The monitor needs to open a path to the cryptum, so fight off the Prometheans to give her some time. She needs your help accessing 2 auxiliary stations while she works, so get that done. The monitor opens the passage to the cryptum, so step on the central platform. You head down the walkway leading to it, run to the end of the corridor. Cortana tries to stop you. Locke breaks apart the shield protecting the beam and disrupts the energy link. The monitor regains control of Genesis. Cortana leaves just as the cryptum is freed, and she winds up leaving without Chief. The cryptum lowers down and the monitor opens it. Chief and Blue Team step outside. Locke and Osiris step up to meet them, and Locke tells him that Cortana is gone. Back on the Infinity, the distress call come in from all over the galaxy, and Cortana and the AIs are shutting down electronics all over the galaxy. She finds the Infinity and brings a Guardian directly in front of it. The Infinity jumps into slip space to escape. A Pelican flies back to San Helios. Chief and Locke step off of it. He brought Chief back to Halsey as a promise, and that's it. The credits roll. We don't even get a scene where Chief and Arbiter shake hands or high five or something. Come the fuck on, man. Yeah, this story is bad. It's really fucking bad. It does not explain much of anything, and it leaves you with far more questions than answers. There are so many things that it just leaves unexplained, and it gives you so little context. It brings Cortana back without a good explanation as to why, and it makes her the bad guy for no fucking reason at all. Fuck this story. So, what happened here? The story feels like there's a massive amount of important story that takes place between Halo 4 and Halo 5, and you are not told any of it in the game, and that's because that's exactly what happened. Look at this chart. The Fall of Reach series will give you some clue on who Blue Team is. Nightfall will tell you who Locke is. The New Blood novel will tell you how Buck became a Spartan. And there is a cutscene added to Halo 2 Anniversary that shows an encounter between Locke and Arbiter. I'm just going to play that for you.
I do not trust you. He may, but I do not.
Noted.
My friend's trust is not the issue today, Spartan Locke. It is my trust you must earn.
Arbiter?
You are a hunter, yes. A seeker of things.
That's not the official job title, but it's close enough.
And now you hunt other Spartans.
I'm not so much hunting a Spartan as I'm hunting the Spartan.
You seek.
117.
I was not told the identity of your prey.
That is why I'm sharing it with you now. We're talking about trust after all. May I ask you something? Your people used to call him Demon. Was that an insult or a compliment?
An insult, to be sure, but one with a modicum of respect. He was indeed my enemy, but in time, I named him ally, even friend. The events which forged this bond were complicated.
Arbiter, we are nearing the target.
Prepare for action. What do you call him, Spartan Locke?
I don't understand the question.
117, the Master Chief. He is not your friend. Is he your foe?
He's gone AWOL and the UNSC want him back. I'm going to bring him home.
I admire your sense of duty, Spartan.
Covenant forces incoming.
But if he has left the fold, he has his reasons.
I'm sure he does, Arbiter. And I intend to find out what they are.
Yeah, this game came with fucking homework. You have to know the lore inside and out and read and watch a bunch of extra material in order to have any clue what the hell is going on in this game's story. Do I even need to explain why this is stupid? Your average Halo fan is not going to dig this deep into the series. Hell, I haven't even dug this deep into it, and I have done lengthy critiques on the series. That is not the only major problem, though. This game has severe disconnects between the marketing and the story for the game. This is why I started off this review by discussing the marketing for the game. It sets up this massive story that does not actually manifest in the game at all. It would have been one thing if it was just the trailers, but the Hunt the Truth podcast is 6 hours in total. There's a ton of work that was put into that, and this game completely disregards all of it. Also, the podcast series has much better writing than this game does. Furthermore, this game has a disconnect with both Halo 4 and Spartan Ops. Spartan Ops has the librarian give Halsey a key to the Forerunner tech at the end of it. It is in 2 pieces, and she gives half of it back to the Infinity as she is being taken away by the Covenant. That is not brought up at all. They were not looking for Cortana, but they were in this game, and it gets details wrong about her arm. Furthermore, Halo 4 ends very differently than this game seems to think it ends. In Halo 4, Cortana sacrifices herself to save Chief from the Didact, and he nukes his ship out of existence. This game proposes that his ship jumped into slip space at the end of the game, and Cortana somehow wound up in the domain where she survived and was cured of her rampancy. It's like, did you even play the previous game? So what the fuck happened? I looked into this. I asked friends of mine over at Chrillcast about this, and they pointed me in the direction of researching a possible rewrite. I'm not going to tell you whose video it was, but someone posted a 2-part video on YouTube discussing how this game was rewritten late in development. Those videos were removed from YouTube long ago. I found a few threads about it on the Halo Waypoint as well, and every single one of them was deleted. A substantial rewrite does make sense here. It would explain why the story in the final game is so drastically different from what we spent time setting up in the marketing. It really does feel like the original plan for this game was drastically different than what we wound up getting. About the only piece of evidence that I can find of this is this Reddit post here. I have no way of proving any of this, and I am just saying that it does make sense. There are more problems beyond that. You know how the previous game spent the entire thing making Chief a deeper character with way more personality? This game kind of just ignores that, and he goes back to being a static character. Lasky does not act like Lasky. In the previous game, he was the one that let you disobey a direct order to take a Pelican to go after the Didact. He never once gave Chief the benefit of the doubt like he did there. Cortana does not act like Cortana either. All in all, this is a poorly written mess that pretty much goes out of its own way to leave the player in the dark on most things. Unless you are a lore hound, you will have no fucking clue what is going on in this game. You cannot do this to your player base. You cannot just expect them to know every single piece of lore you ever release just to understand your game. This game came with homework, and it asks way too much of the player. One more thing. Maybe I'm being nitpicky here, but why do we go to saying Helios as Locke? Arbiter and Locke didn't know each other, they just knew of each other. Why don't we go there as Chief? It feels like a huge missed opportunity to me to not have a cool reunion between the two in this way. At the end of the game here, they do reunite, but it does literally nothing with these two old friends seeing each other for the first time in a long time. So, the story sucks ass through a bendy straw, but what about the graphics? This is the first Halo game of the 8th gen consoles, so you expect a big leap over the previous games. Furthermore, this game has support for the Xbox One X, where it can run at a native resolution of 4K, and it does downscale from there to keep the frame rate consistent. You have been staring at it for a while now. I have no doubt that you can clearly see that this was achieved. Halo 5 is a technical marvel on the Xbox One. It is one of the better looking games on the console, and it showcases how good games can be on the Xbox One X. This game is simply stunning with a high level of detail packed into the environments and vibrant colors and beautiful lighting effects and high resolution texture work. I recorded this on an Xbox One X, and you can watch my entire playthrough at 4K on my gameplay channel. It is simply stunning to look at. What makes this even better is that this game targets 60 FPS. And it hits it fairly consistently too. The frame rate rarely drops below 60, even when the action gets hectic. When drops do occur, they are so slight that they will not be noticeable by the vast majority of players. It is mostly when the game is loading in new data. When this happens, it will drop a few frames and then returning to running at 60 FPS pretty much instantly. It's amazing. The result is that this game feels smooth as silk to play. Playing it feels more fluid than any previous Halo game. I hope that this is the new norm for the series going forward, because the 60 FPS gameplay is so quick and responsive. I can do 30 FPS just fine. But the buttery smooth gameplay here is where we should be at this point, even on consoles. I love it. What I love less, however, are some of the art design decisions. The biggest example of this are the designs of some of the Spartan armors. Look at this. Why does the visor jut out like this? It almost looks like it has a horn or something. What is this? A helmet for Rhino from Spider-Man? I don't know. It just looks stupid. Most of the rest of it is fine, and it is cool to see saying Helios on a glass planet for the first time ever. What about the audio? This is another high mark for the game. Moving to a new console with higher capacity discs than the Xbox 360 allowed, you would expect an increase in audio fidelity, and you definitely get it here. The bass is booming, the audio is crisp and clear, the weapons sound great, the environmental noises all sound excellent. I have zero complaints about this game with regards to its audio design. The voice acting is pretty good too. I would not say that it is quite as good as it has been in some previous games, but I guess that is to be expected because the material here just isn't good. Given the lines that they were expected to read, the actors all turned in decent performances. I cannot complain about the voice work here, even when the dialogue is straight up cringeworthy, like Tanaka's little speech. The actors do all they can to making it sound better than it is. The effort is appreciated. What about the music then? Halo is known for its music, and when you accepted it for what it is instead of wanting it to be something that it's not, 343 did knock it out of the park with Halo 4. I wish I could say the same for this game, but I can't. By far, the most standout tracks are the ones that carry over from previous games. The rest of it is serviceable, but not all that memorable. Wow, this is 2 Halo games in a row where I have said that the music isn't amazing. That's just depressing. Beyond that, you know how the music was edited to wonderful effect in Halo 4? Choices like the sense of wonder the soundtrack had when you saw Requiem for the first time, or the decision to not score the aftermath of the die deck using the composer for the first time. It was wonderfully edited in that game. And this has no moments quite like that. There is nothing in this game where the decisions made with the audio editing really stand out like that. As a whole, the audio design is very good, the guns sound powerful, the environmental noises are all great, the voice acting is good for the material that the actors were given, and the only real letdown is the music being decent instead of amazing, like previous games in this series. On a technical level, the game's certainly impressive, that much is certain, but how does it play? Well, Halo 5 retains that sandbox design from the previous games. If you've played Halo before, you have a pretty good idea what to expect from its gameplay going into this one, and you will get it. As such, I'm not going to spend too much time focusing on that aspect of it. Instead, I'm going to talk about the new things that 343 brought to the table, as well as changes and tweaks that they have implemented to keep things fresh in a series that is now 20 years old. I made myself feel like an old dog just saying that out loud. This game has a new type of Promethean enemy. These are a go-between the crawlers and the knights. They are harder to take out than the crawlers, but easier to kill than the knights. They serve a role similar to the jackals stuck between the elites and the grunts. Just like the jackals, there is a variety of them, as there are soldiers with machine guns and shotguns, as well as snipers that hang out in the back. They're a nice addition to the Promethean lineup, and they are fun to fight. The Prometheans have a new vehicle as well. It's called the Phaeton. It will strafe from side to side far easier than the Covenant UNSC flying vehicles. They are equipped with a machine gun and homing missiles that you can switch back and forth between. There are 2 missions in this game where you get the opportunity to use them. They are fun. They are like more maneuverable Banshees. I like these additions as well. There is a new version of the 4-wheeler as well that has 2 mounted projectile launchers on them. They explode on impact. These have a good speed to them and they deal decent damage to enemies. They can dart quickly across the battlefield to avoid incoming fire, but they can also flip fairly easily. This does not slide nearly as easily as the Warthog does. This is a fun vehicle as well and a nice addition to the sandbox in my opinion. The game makes a number of tweaks and changes to the format as well. It implements advanced movement like a lot of shooters at the time. Chief and Locke have quick dash moves that they can use to barrel straight through breakable walls or into enemies to deal damage or to destroy them entirely. I love this addition. I used it a lot over the course of my playthrough. They also added a ledge grabbing mechanic. You can try to climb your way up something and you can grab onto the ledge to pull yourself up to a higher location with ease. This makes dangerous jumps a little easier and you will definitely be using this a fair bit, especially if you like to explore the maps in these games, as every previous game has incentivized players to do. It works well enough and the game does put it to use quite a bit in this game. Locke has a new tool that he uses to scan the environment. It is called the Artemis scanning tool. You mostly use it to point you in the right direction or use secrets, but Locke uses it to access things like data pads and audio logs. Chief, however, does not have this. He can still access the same audio logs, and it makes you wonder how much use this thing actually is. You can now sprint for as long as you want. You no longer run out of breath after running for a short distance like you did in Halo Reach and Halo 4. I know sprint is controversial for a lot of fans, but I thank God for this. At least in the campaign, it hurts nothing to have sprint there. It also allows you to get a running start when you charge into enemies and slam into them to kill them. It's awesome. I love it. The Prometheans work a little different in this game. The Watchers pop up a lot less than they did in 4. It's like 343 recognized that they were annoying in the previous game and they reduced how often you had to deal with them in this one. I am thankful for it. The Knights are also different too. They have specific spots on their body where you need to shoot them to destroy their armor. It requires you to aim precisely when you fight them and to be more careful. It's an overall improvement, and they can be a real challenge if you fight them in larger groups. The way Promethean weapons work has changed as well. The pistol and the machine gun now have slight homing properties to them. This works both ways. When the enemies use them on you, they will still have this property, so be careful. This differentiates their weapons from human weapons more and makes them feel more distinct than they did in Halo 4. I like this change as they did feel rather samey in 4. From a gameplay standpoint, it is like 343 listened to a lot of fans' complaints and tried to address them in this game. But that does not excuse some of the other things that they did. First off, split-screen multiplayer is now gone. If you want to play this game with your friends, you have to do it over the internet. There is no two ways about this. It just sucks. It has been a series staple for literally the entire series, and now it's gone. Did you go into a mainline Halo game expecting to play as Master Chief for at minimum half of the game? Haha, fuck you. You get to play as him for 3 levels. There are 3 hub levels in this game that take mere minutes to finish as well, and the other 9 has you play as Locke. This is a very short game as a result. If you are just breezing through it, you can beat it in about 6 hours, making it only a little longer than ODST was, and that game started off development as an expansion. Why does this game have hit markers? And they are big ones too, so they are super easy to notice in this game. Halo has never had a problem conveying to you that your shots are hitting enemies, so why is this needed? It's a minor annoyance, but it is distracting. I do not like it. Here's hoping that they are gone in Halo Infinite. Who at 343 Industries decided that it was a good idea to make you fight the exact same boss 5 times? You fight the Warden Eternal 5 separate times over the course of this game, and he is the only boss fight. It was a good boss fight the first time, but you get so fucking sick of seeing him by the game's end. Fighting the same boss 5 times over in a span of 6 to 7 hours is not fun, 343. Stop it! By this point, you are probably yelling at your screen that I have not talked about the single biggest change that this game made: the elephant in the room. Did you notice throughout my story recap that the only members of Blue Team and Fire Team Osiris that are important to the story are Chief and Locke? Did that make you wonder why the other characters are even there to begin with? Well, they are there in service of the gameplay and nothing else. You see, Halo 5 is a squad-based shooter. That's right. This game implemented squad mechanics. And I would venture a guess that the only mechanic that you are going to use is the one that lets you revive allies and lets allies revive you. Other than that, you will probably forget that they are even there the vast majority of the time. But they will rear their ugly head to remind you that you are playing a squad-based game. The AI is not much better than it was in previous games. They can help you take down enemies, but most of those enemies will die by your hand and not theirs. They can and will get in your way though. You will almost certainly wind up shooting your own teammates at some point because they will step right into your line of fire as you are fighting enemies. It's just as annoying as it sounds. The big problem is that they only half-heartedly committed to squad mechanics. See, implementing these properly into the game would mean making some pretty fundamental changes to level layouts and to the way the game actually plays. You would need to make it not play like Halo anymore to make the squad mechanics work properly, and they were not willing to do that. Allow me to explain. This is Star Wars Republic Commando. It is an excellent squad-based shooter from the 6th gen consoles. It was on Xbox and PC, though it has since been ported to the Switch and the PlayStation 4. In this game, you lead a small group of special clone troopers who go in to get hard jobs done. Each trooper has his own distinct personality, and they are all memorable as a result. The game builds its levels around squad mechanics. They're simple mechanics, but they work well. You can do things like order your squad to take up various positions on the battlefield, or to heal themselves at back of tanks, or to do things like set explosives to breach doors. This is how you do squad mechanics properly, and it would require Halo to change how it plays and how its levels are laid out in order to work in this series. If this was a spin-off title, maybe they would have gone all the way in with an experimental squad mechanics game, but it's not. This is a mainline Halo game, and they clearly believed they could not risk going all the way with it. The end result is that the squad mechanics feel half-baked, and the game feels like it has an identity crisis. It wants to be a squad-based game, but it also wants to be a typical Halo power fantasy affair. These two are completely at odds with each other, and the end result is that Halo 5 just does not feel like Halo anymore. Look, I get it. If you do not make tweaks and changes to your game, it will become stale over time, and the player base will diminish as a result. But if you change too much, it becomes something else entirely. You have to walk a fine line of keeping what worked and tweaking it to make it feel fresh and new. This game feels stuck between the new mechanics and the same style of Halo that we have been playing for 20 years, and for the first time in series history, it goes too far and it just does not feel like the beloved series anymore. What about replay value then? Well, just like the previous games, there are collectibles. You have skulls, of course, and you can collect them and turn them on to tweak how the game plays and alter the difficulty if you want to, but it does away with the terminals. Instead, it has audio logs. There are 117 of them. Listen, 343, I get the reference, but really? 117 of them? What am I playing? A collectathon platformer? They don't give you enough context for the story to make sense either. Some of them are pretty funny though. So there is that at least. Collecting them all and getting all the skulls will keep you playing for a while, and it has multiple difficulties, and online co-op, and competitive multiplayer. There's plenty of replay value. Boy, this review was kind of depressing, isn't it? The story is bad, but the game itself, it's not bad. It just does not feel like Halo anymore. If you find it for cheap, it might be worth a playthrough, but this game does enough wrong that I would not blame you if you just skip out on it entirely, to be honest. I'm not sure how much sense Halo Infinite will make without playing this, though. Take that for what it's worth. I loved Halo 4. I loved it a lot. And knowing how this one turned out just makes me sad. This is where I would usually tell you about the different versions of this game, but there is a problem with that. As of me writing this, Halo 4 is a true Xbox One exclusive. There is no PC port of this game. It does have enhanced support for the Xbox One X, and the Xbox Series X will run it too. I do not have that console, and I cannot show you it running on that. I heard it can force HDR though, so I bet it looks gorgeous on that console. Thank you all for watching this dive into Halo 5. This was a long one, and if you stuck it out to the end, know that I greatly appreciate it. Here's hoping Infinite turns out good. It has to be better than this one, right? When we next talk about Halo, I will be critiquing Halo Wars 2, but I do not know when that will be because I do not even own that game yet. Please leave your thoughts below. What do you think of Halo 5? If you could like and share this video, that would help me out as well. Talk to you later, everybody. Doomdog out.